such language to express your opinion, you might email our council members or leave a message in our 24-hour comment line. Additionally, our staff will request your name during the WebEx registration process. To limit disruption, your name cannot include a message or violate our rules of decorum. For those joining on WebEx, please watch your chat window in case we try to reach you. Scott Corpany from our staff will moderate our WebEx and will message you with any questions about your registration. Staff is handling many tasks, so please limit your messages to technical issues and minimal information updates. If you would like to send comments to the City Council, please feel free to reach out us by mail through the P.O. Box 145476, Salt Lake City, Utah 84114. You can also send us a message through email, council.comments@slcgov.com, or you can call our line 801-535-7654. That brings us to item A4. This item is the council will approve the formal meeting minutes of July 12, 2022, as well as the Living Traditions luncheon minutes of May 17, 2022.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the formal meeting minutes of July 12, 2022, as well as the Living Tradition luncheon minutes of May 17, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros? Councilmember Peter Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. That brings us to item A5 on the agenda. The council will consider adopting a joint ceremonial resolution with Mayor Mendenhall recognized in September as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month. I would like to turn the time over to Councilmember Darren Mano to read the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a joint resolution declaring September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in Salt Lake City. Whereas September is known globally as Suicide Prevention Month, and whereas according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the 9th leading cause of death among adults in Utah and the leading cause of death for Utahns aged 10 through 24 years old. And whereas also according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, Utah averages 651 suicides per year. And whereas on average more than 48,000 lives are lost from suicide in the United States each year, which averages to about 132 suicides per day. And whereas every life lost directly affects the victim's family, friends, coworkers, neighbors, and community, and whereas mental health and suicide prevention services are accessible and available thanks to the work of organizations like Hope for the Day, which serves on the front lines of an invisible war that many still refuse to see and discuss due to deadly stigmas around mental health conditions and suicide. And whereas Salt Lake City values those who work daily to help better the lives of others through their professions in mental health care, education, emergency services, and many more. And whereas, as of this year, 988 is the new telephone number for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, comprised of over 200 crisis centers that are available to help people overcome mental health emergencies. And whereas calling or texting 988 provides 24/7 confidential support to those in need. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Salt Lake City Council and Mayor of Salt Lake City recognize the month of September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month in Salt Lake City. Be it further resolved, Salt Lake City encourages all residents to familiarize themselves with mental health education and treatment resources and recognize how a healthy mind can help us take better care of ourselves, our families, and our communities. Thank you.
Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the joint resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Peter Eschler and a second by Councilmember Valdemoros. Is there any discussion on this item?
Mr. Chair, I would like one moment of privilege. I wanted to say thank you for this. I think it's very important. I think, especially in Hispanic communities, this is an issue that mental health issues are still taboo in our community. And it's very important that we're here at the forefront talking about this, trying to spread the word and also kill those taboos that are so tragic for our communities. And also I wanted to say thank you to those many people that are working out there, like Paz Utah. Sergio is another Argentine fellow that is an instructor, and he instructs families, Hispanic families, about suicide prevention with teenagers, and especially with teenagers. And there's another group called Latino Behavioral Group, led by Javier Alegre, that does similar work. So shout out to this group that we talked today, and to all those Hispanic working, trying to prevent these tragedies. So thank you for this.
Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Peter Eschler,
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoras,
Yes.
Councilmember Mano,
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan,
Yes.
Wharton,
Yes.
and Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes. We also have us through WebEx joining us Bev Schwartz, Development Coordinator for Hope for the Day, to accept the resolution. Bev, welcome. Are you there? I think that means no. Well, I'm sure Bev will find out about the resolution. We'll send it to her. Thank you. We're going to move now to item B, the public hearings. Taylor Hill and our staff will be calling the names of those who wish to comment. We will call the names of people on WebEx and in person based on the order of registration or when we receive the cards. Once we open public comment, Taylor will we'll announce 3 names at a time so people can have some notice and prepare to speak. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. If you are on WebEx, your line will unmute and you may begin. If you are here in person, please step to the podium and make your comment once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and your 2-minute time will start. At the 2-minute mark, staff will announce time. If you are unable to finish your comment, please send the rest via email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is available in the meeting room and in WebEx and the WebEx chat. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when the staff states your name, let us know that you're just here to listen. Our first public hearing, item B1, regarding an ordinance for a budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year 2022-2023. Before we begin taking comments, we're going to turn the time to Ben Lutke, Council Staff Policy Analyst, to give us a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 17 proposed items in budget amendment number 1. The total expenditures are almost $15.5 million. 3 of the items are transportation impact fees to cover cost increases for street reconstruction projects. There's also $1 million to implement the council's final CIP project funding decisions, and $150,000 for public education efforts related to the proposed general obligation bond, among other items. The staff report, the administration's transmittal, and the single attachment are all in today's meeting packet. The budget website is updated throughout the year to reflect each budget amendment. The website is available at tinyurl.com/SLCFY23. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben, for the update. Taylor, please start with our first public comment.
Thank you, Council Chair. There is one person here to speak to this item, and that is George Chapman. George, you are now unmuted. 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 George, you are now.
George, give us a minute until we figure that out. That was. We have a few technical difficulties. We're figuring that out, so bear with us, be patient. Thank you.
George, your line is unmuted. Taylor, if you could open the call-in line.
Okay, do you want me to speak?
Yes, George, please go ahead.
Okay, Budget Amendment 1, homeless mitigation grant, which you got, only gives 12 new officers, which will take at least a year to put in place near the shelters. You really need them now, not in a year. And do you really want to tell the residents and businesses that they have to endure the constant criminal activity next to the property, the shelters that they've invested their whole life in? You really want to tell them to wait a year? That doesn't make sense. I still think, and I think that the shelter neighbors think, that walking sworn police officers are important now and more important than buying cars for them, which would be better used for overtime and walking police patrols, which are being asked for in many areas that are open-air shelters. And why aren't the ARPA $2 million fund for businesses publicized as available for businesses impacted by the shelter? And I hope that the Go Bond education includes a more vigorous discussion and argument than some of the past votes. And the next budget amendment should include the cost of a big, clean battery or fuel cell generator for food trucks events. Those are my comments.
Thank you, George. Taylor, is there anybody else?
That was the only comment for this item.
Looking for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending fiscal year 2023 final budget of Salt Lake City, including the employment staffing document only for the items shown on the motion sheet, which are A4 and D2.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, this motion passes. Now to our second public hearing, item B2 on the agenda. This is grant application for a 2022 Train to Trainer Education Grant, Workday Human Resources Management Software. Before we begin taking comments on this item, I will turn the time over to Sylvia Richards, Council Staff Policy Analyst, who's online, to give us a short introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The city applies for and receives grants which help to support and fund some city programs. Each grant application is reviewed and then receives a public hearing, which gives the public an opportunity to comment on them. Tonight, there is one grant, the 2022 Train the Trainer grant, and if awarded, the grant monies will be used to fund training for the Workday Human Resource Management software, which was recently implemented across city departments. The training will take place between November 2022 and April 2023. Again, this is an item the city applied for to fund programs and projects. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sylvia. Taylor, please start with the first comment.
Council Chair, it looks like there is no one here to speak to this item.
Okay, there's no comments on this, no one in the room. I will look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council close the public hearing and refer item B2 to a future consent agenda for action.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mano. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros? Councilmember Peter Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler? Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. We are moving now to item C, potential action items. Is item C1 regarding an ordinance for rezone and master plan amendments at Rose Park Lane. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Amy Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. That brings us to item C2, an ordinance on zoning map amendment at 858 West and 860 West Hoyt Place. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Peter Eschler and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. Next item is item C3 is regarding an ordinance on zoning map amendments at approximately 805 South, 800 West. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass the ordinance,
Second.
adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Wharton. Is there any discussion? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. Now let's move to item C4, and this is a motion. It's an ordinance regarding a rezone and master plan amendment at 2435 South, 500 East. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move
that
that
we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mano and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. Item C5 is regarding an ordinance for R2 text amendments building coverage. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance.
Second.
Councilmember Dugan, yet again, and a second by Councilmember Mano. Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item? I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. That brings us to the last potential action item, C6, regarding a resolution for capital improvement program projects. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council approve a resolution adopting the capital improvement program project-specific allocations for fiscal year 2023 as shown on the attached Exhibit A funding log.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Petro Eschler and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this item? I am going to call the question. Councilmember Petro Eschler?
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros?
Yes.
Councilmember Mano?
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan?
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton?
Yes.
Councilmember Fowler?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes. We're moving now to item D1, questions to the mayor from the city council. Are there any questions for the mayor? Mayor, thank you again for being here. So now we are on the, there's no questions to the mayor, and there's any comments to the city council. Now we are in that section of the agenda. We would like to hear comments from anybody online or in person about general topics or items not scheduled for hearing tonight. I went over the City Council rules of decorum earlier today, and those rules apply here right now. We are accepting comments in person, like I mentioned, online through WebEx and via telephone line. Scott Corpany and our staff is moderating the meeting and will message attendees as needed. Taylor Hill and our staff will call the names of those who wish to comment based on the order of registration and or when we receive the comment card. Once we open public comment, Taylor will announce 3 names at a time so the people can prepare and have some notice. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. For people on WebEx, she will unmute your line so you may begin. When it is your turn to speak, Taylor will announce your name. If you are on WebEx, your line will unmute and you may begin. If you are here in person, please step up to the podium to make your comment once Taylor announces your name. To begin, please state your name and your 2-minute timer will start. At the 2-minute mark, you're gonna hear time and your microphone will be muted. If you are unable to finish your comment, please send the rest of your comment through email, mail, or call our office. Our contact information is available in the meeting room and in the WebEx chat. If you no longer wish to speak, please either message our staff or when staff states your name and let us know you're just here to listen. Taylor, can you tell us, point us to the first commenter?
Council Chair, there are 4 people here to speak for general comment. The first will be Terry Durfee, followed by George Chapman, and then Robert Hall. Terry, you are unmuted.
Very good. Hi, my name is Terry Durfee. I want to speak about the contract between Salt Lake City and the Utah Inland Port Authority, and specifically about requiring sustainable building standards. Even though this is regarding the proposed Utah Inland Port, it would be useful to make sustainable building required for all development. Contrary to claims by the Utah Inland Port Authority Board and warehouse developers that the proposed Utah Inland Port Authority would clean the air, there has been no sustainable development at the port over the past 4 years, despite tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer expenditures. In fact, there already appears to be infringement upon agreed eco-barriers as developers literally cut corners. I would like to suggest Council take this opportunity to increase long-term funding for the building department so that the inland port inspections can keep pace with the reckless warehouse development currently going on. I believe the Salt Lake City Building Department can take a leadership role by upgrading applicable building standards, increasing building inspector staff, develop digital development maps, and provide additional training and professional development for inspectors to minimize the unhealthy impacts of the proposed Utah Inland Port. There are many modern green building standards with specific standards that would reduce the unhealthy impact of port development. It is only fair that a portion of House Bill 443 funds go to giving the Salt Lake City Building Department the number of inspectors it needs to keep up with the subsidized development. Also, investing in the professional development of Salt Lake City building inspectors will generate a better return for taxpayers than subsidized warehouse development. With the advent of new sustainable building practices and standards, it is important that our inspectors have professional development opportunities which will protect the citizens of Salt Lake City. We have a great
And next we will hear from George Chapman, followed by Robert Hall, and then Heather Dove. George, you're now unmuted.
Okay, I remind you that you're interested in electric vehicles, but the form-based code does not require off-street parking, so the city's form-based code discourages buying electric vehicles. You understand why there's a mutual incompatibility between the two things? And on a separate subject, the main street left-hand turns increase danger for cyclists and pedestrians. That's why Liberty Park put in a right-hand turn only. I have no problem with left-hand turns at a light, but putting in a center turn lane on Main Street and any other street except at lights actually makes it more dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists. As with most center turn lanes without a traffic light, it's really, really, really bad. But even in Sugar House with a light, recently a motorcyclist was killed due to a left-hand turn. That's how dangerous they are. You need to understand that left-hand drivers speed up to avoid oncoming traffic, which to drivers is their primary focus. Pedestrians and bicyclists are not as important to them. And on the ranked choice voting, much of the satisfaction of winner take all is that Salt Lake City, in Salt Lake, they did not have a primary, which decreased real debate and resulted in candidates with reducing focus on the best two candidates, and that encourages spending more. And in the case of Salt Lake City, $40,000 won the election last year. So the most rich campaigns succeeded. 8 years ago, it was $5,000 you could win an election. And finally, on the open air camping, I think 3% is way too low. 50% is the reality. And this subject should not be behind closed doors. I agree it's a county and state level discussion, but a small group meeting is inappropriate. And those are my comments. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, George.
Next, we will hear from Robert Hall, followed by Heather Dove. Robert, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Robert Hall. Just hopefully a quick comment for you. About 10 years ago, I moved to Salt Lake City, and there was a large gym on 2100 South and another large gym at Trolley Square. Since then, the population is of young people who use those type of facilities has at least doubled, and both of those gyms have shut down. And I've noticed myself driving, all the way to Murray to go to a large gym. A lot of people aren't going to use the smaller facilities, and they're just looking maybe for a large national gym. And so I just wanted to maybe voice a recommendation, especially along 2100 South. If there was just a Vasa Fitness or a Lifetime Fitness over there, I feel like that would just do a lot for the lifestyle and health of the community. Also, just as maybe another quick idea, the old Raging Waters facility, I know there's some plans for that, the old park, but if somebody, if we've decided to do a large urban beach type facility with beach volleyball, maybe you can, rent kayaks and paddle boards and just have maybe a large pond there, something unique that would, I kind of saw something like that in Reno. And I just thought it'd be perfect for over there. So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you, Robert.
Next will be Heather Dove, who is in person to speak.
Good evening. My name's Heather Dove, and as president of Great Salt Lake Audubon, I'm speaking on behalf of our members, many of whom live in Salt Lake City. I wanted to speak tonight to clarify what the wildlife organizations think about trails in the natural areas north of the inland port, as there's been some comments about this idea in some recent City Council meetings. The 4,000-acre natural area north of the jurisdictional boundary of the port was intended by wildlife people to be protected for its intrinsic wildlife value and to act as a buffer for the 20,000 acres of privately held wetland habitat which is adjacent to Great Salt Lake. We believe that this area should remain with no trails or other public access. However, there is another sizable privately held area consisting of over 200 acres in the natural area adjacent to I-80 that we are proposing as a possible wildlife viewing area. With the collaboration of the landowner, this area could be restored to a functioning wetland with water rights and an engineering plan. Trails around the perimeter could allow public observation of wildlife without disturbing the birds and animals that the restored wetland attracts. We're hoping Salt Lake City will endorse and facilitate this vision by allocating some funds towards its realization should this vision prove viable. And finally, a word about conservation easements. We believe the city needs to support and actively encourage the creation of conservation easements in the natural area. It's currently zoned non-developable, but as we all know, zoning can change. For that reason, we believe the natural area needs further protection that only conservation easements would afford. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Heather.
And Council Chair, we have one more person who just registered to speak. That will be Mamound Maghimi, who is in person.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Mahmoud Mogimi. I am owner of the Deer Valley Limousine, one of the airport taxi service company at the airport. That we recently submitted a proposal for contracted taxi cab, but for some reason my proposal denied and rejected, and I wasn't one of them, and with no explanation. First of all, I was going to know why, and then second, we are building a new airport, beautiful, the most beautiful airport in the country. The reason we are doing is providing the better customer service. While we are doing this, while we are slashing customer service taxi cab at the airport, while we are telling customer, if you come here to Salt Lake City, you have only one choice. You have no other choices. People, they like to have better service, different vehicle provided with their family, especially during your ski season. When it's snowing, they want to go safely, especially going to a snowbird. Without the snow, they need Suburbans, they need four-wheel drives. While we are removing all those vehicles from the fleet and customers not to have that kind of service. I would like to address it to the member. If they decided only one company to operate it, and they denied my proposal, why not choose me as a second, to join the second company to provide the service at the airport? That would be even beneficial for everybody, for drivers, community, customer service, for the airport, passengers coming, everybody. I would like to consider that we are slashing a customer service at the airport. Yeah.
Thank you, Mahmoud.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
We are now going to take a recess.
Chair. Taylor was just going to say that there is one more person that has provided a card.
Okay, Taylor, go ahead.
That will be Max Profit, who is in person to speak.
Profit? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, my name is Max Profit. I've been living in this city here for about 15 years. When I started with a yellow cab. Then I moved out from yellow cab, then I opened my own company. And we operated inside the airport. Like you just said, the airport is growing, and we have a lot of customers coming from all over the world, and especially in ski season, we average about 5 or 6 million customers coming in over here. And mostly what they want is suburban, huge vehicles for huge family. Like you said, we're happy to work with Yellow Cab, but Yellow Cab doesn't have enough vehicle to service the airport. When it comes to the ski seasons, or outdoor retailers coming back, or the big convention centers coming now, open up with the big conferences. We need to have another second company that can work with Yellow Cab and share the expenses, providing taxi for the fellow patrons coming into the airport. They have to have a choice. If they don't want a Yellow Cab, they can pick up a black car. They have to, because they have big skis, huge families, 6, 7 families, and Yellow Cab, right now, they don't have enough vehicle for it. And they don't have enough driver. You put Yellow Cab in there, the rest of us, with about 100 drivers, we're gonna be out of the work. They just send us out. So you have Yellow Cab, and we have to work with Yellow Cab, and these drivers, they can't be able to work with Yellow Cab because Yellow Cab is too expensive for them, because they have to pay Yellow Cab $2,500 a week. $2,500 a week, and then we have to make money for our rent and everything, and that's gonna be another $3,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are now going to take a recess to prepare for the 7 p.m. Meeting, which is required by law. Anybody that wants to comment on general topic issues can do so after the 7 p.m. meeting. The 7 p.m. meeting is related to taxes. I'm sure some people here want to share some of their comments. So we're going to be on recess until 7 p.m. Thank you. For the 7 p.m. meeting. We're going to resume item D2, which is general comment to the council. I believe that there had been a few other people that wanted to make general comments to this council. Taylor Hill, are those there? Who's next to share some comments?
Council Chair, next will be Malin Mensch. Who it looks like has left the meeting unless they are in person. And Malin was the last one I have on my list, unless there's anyone else in person who would like to speak.
Is there anybody here in the room that want to share comments to the council? Thank you. We're going to. Chris is out, so maybe no. So we're moving now to, thank you everybody for their comments earlier on through the special limited formal meeting on taxes. Now we're going to item E1, which is an ordinance for Community Recovery Committee, and I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt an ordinance amending Salt Lake City Code, Chapter 2.20 to modify the membership of the Community Recovery Committee.
Second.
There's a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mano. Is there any discussion on this item? Call the question. Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
And is Councilmember Fowler online? No. No. Councilmember Fowler absent. I am a yes, and this motion passes. Moving to item F, unfinished business. This is item F1. It's an ordinance, Unity National LLC franchise agreement. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the ordinance granting a telecommunication franchise to Unita Unity National LLC.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Peter Eschler. Is there any discussion on this item? Can I call the question? Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
And I'm a yes with Councilmember Fowler absent. And this motion passes. Now we move to item F2, and it's regarding a resolution, the general obligation bond for parks, trails, and open space. I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt a resolution providing for the holding of the special bonds elections, which will have a public hearing held on October 11th and a public meeting held on October 18th. I further move that the council encourage the administration to seek funding from external sources such as private and community partners for any Salt Lake City park or facilities projects that receive bond funding.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Dugan and a second by Councilmember Mano. Is there any discussion on this item? We're going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes with Councilmember Fowler absent. Next item is item F3, and is a resolution for sales tax revenue bond, and I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt a resolution authorizing up to $67.5 million of sales and excise tax revenue bonds, giving authority to certain officers to approve the final terms and provisions of the bonds within specified parameters, adding irrigation to the city cemetery road repairs and reconstruction project, and providing for relevant matters. I further move that the council encourage the administration to seek funding from external sources such as private and community partners for any Salt Lake City park or facilities project that receives bond funding.
Second.
There is a motion on the table by Councilmember Warren and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this item? I call the question. Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Wharton.
Ooh, mixing it up. Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And there is Councilmember Fowler absent. We're moving back to F4. We're moving forward to item F4 regarding an ordinance for economic development revolving loan fund for Chip Cookies LLC. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move the council adopt the ordinance approving $350,000 loan for Chip Cookies LLC from the Economic Development Loan Fund.
Second.
There is a motion by Councilmember Warden and a second by Councilmember Dugan. Is there any discussion on this item?
I ate a chip cookie last night. It was delicious. So proud to support this local business, both personally and as a member of this council.
Is there any other discussion on this item? Okay, we're going to call the question. Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Warden.
Yes.
And I'm a yes with Councilmember Fowler absent. This motion passes. Now we're moving to the consent agenda. That brings us to item G. I'm looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that the council adopt the consent agenda with an amendment to item G2, which is setting the date for the airport master plan public hearing, keeping the current date, as well as adding a second public hearing on October 18th. And furthermore, I would like to change the date of potential action to be determined. And this will allow time for the council to consider the proposed changes that we discussed last week, as well as what I expect to hear from the community in the public hearing, and for us to hopefully incorporate some of those changes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments on this? Any thoughts? Okay, I'm going to call the question. Councilmember Wharton.
Yes.
Councilmember Valdemoros.
Yes.
Councilmember Mano.
Yes.
Councilmember Dugan.
Yes.
Councilmember Peter Eschler.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. This motion passes with Councilmember Fowler absent. This concludes our formal city council meeting. The council's formal meeting now stands adjourned.